Sting is a 2024 horror film about a spider, and I'm really happy to be talking about it because I missed it in the theatrical run simply because it didn't come to my theater. But I'm a huge fan of spider horror because we don't often see enough of these films. But where does this rank among those? Let's get cracking. So Sting is about a spider, yes, but it's really about this girl who finds the spider and keeps it as a pet, continually feeding it, making it grow bigger, and also learning some special skills that the spider seems to have, including the ability to grow really, really fast, as well as mimic things like a parrot. But when it starts to get a little bit bigger and a little bit smarter, it decides to venture out on its own throughout this apartment complex, finding other animals and people to eat. I've always held the belief that when it comes down to horror films in general, we should be focusing on real-life things that scare people to death. One of the biggest ones we all know is spiders. And while you might think that there are a million different spider films out there, there's really not. At least not that take themselves seriously. However, there's a lot of parody/comedy films that make fun of horror films that take spiders seriously. But I will defend this subgenre of horror until I die because it makes so much sense. In my experience, the golden standard in terms of how a horror film should be when it's focusing on spiders is the 1990 film directed by Frank Marshall. You know it, Arachnophobia. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but there's so many reasons to watch that film. For me, it provided just so many examples of different things, such as proof that films don't have to be rated R in order to be scary, since Arachnophobia was actually PG. I mean, think about it. What is it about spiders that are scary? If you are somebody who is afraid of spiders just naturally, if you watch the movie, that fear will exponentially rise tenfold because it takes all of those elements that actually make you afraid of spiders and makes it worse in the best of ways because all the spiders in that film are real. They had like hundreds or thousands of spiders imported to the film, and just reading up on how they made that movie is incredible. So apart from it giving you the heebie-jeebies, it's also incredibly interesting to read up on. Another thing that Arachnophobia actually proves is the fact that spiders don't have to be these gigantic, monstrous things in order to be scary. All the spiders in that movie are real, so they are tiny. But there's a lot of them. Another movie that takes itself incredibly seriously when it comes down to scary spiders is a very, very classic film, The Incredible Shrinking Man. Again, so many things going on in that movie in terms of reasons why you should watch it, despite the spider itself, just in terms of practical effects, practical set designs, and things of the nature. Again, a real spider, just shot really closely, macro style, while they superimpose this guy while he battles him. Very, very cool. There's been a handful of more films that take themselves seriously here and there. Some of you will probably mention some movies in the comments as well. I probably have seen them, and I almost always appreciate them. However, when they start going the CGI route, and the more tacky they get, the more jump scare-ish they get, the less I'm actually intrigued behind it. Because they completely forget the simplicity of what a spider is and why it scares people. Just think about the fact that elephants are afraid of mice. Why? Because they're tiny. We're afraid of the tiny. For some reason, it's just ingrained in us to be afraid of tiny things. So when you make spiders huge, it's more fun, I guess, and entertaining than it is legitimately scary, because once it grows beyond a normal size, you're obviously not going to be sucked in to the point of believing anything. Suspension of disbelief and all that. Where does Sting come into play? To me, it was kind of a mix of things that are really, really good when it comes down to horror with spiders and really, really tacky. I like the fact that it knew exactly what it was, and so when it needed to, it could be a little bit tongue-in-cheek when it comes down to the moments of films like this that aren't so believable but are fun to watch. But it's also something that takes itself seriously as well. There are some practical effects going on in this film. Not many, but some. And maybe I'm going a little bit crazy here, but it makes me think that it was paying tribute to some of those older films that take themselves seriously. And again, I am beyond grateful to have been able to see this movie after waiting patiently, because regardless on if it's tacky or realistic and terrifying, regardless of any of that, it is so rare, especially nowadays, to see a movie take itself seriously when it comes down to the fear of spiders. And like I said before, I've always held the belief that if a movie is centered on an actual legitimate fear that people have, the more successful it'll be in the long term if it wants to be a horror film. That's one of the reasons that I like Paranormal Activity. Even though you don't see a whole lot in that movie, it goes off of the fears that you actually feel if you are afraid of things like ghosts. Most of the time, if you believe in ghosts and you're afraid of ghosts, what do? You hear sounds, you start imagining the impossible, the worst case scenario, and a paranormal movie such as Paranormal Activity takes those exact feelings and amplifies them and makes a really good story out of it. You don't always need to see things, right? Because what are we afraid of? We're afraid of the unknown. Blair Witch Project, same exact idea. Afraid of the unknown. What lurks in the woods? What is that snapping of twigs we hear, right? These are films that are built to scare you. Sting's not a movie that's really built to scare you as much as to just be a lot of fun. It's not a perfect film. It's not the best spider film out there. I am afraid that in the long term, I might just be forgetting it because there have been a lot of movies that kind of go off of the same structure as this, and some of them have approached this idea better than this. But overall, it's a good time. Nothing's ever going to beat Arachnophobia, I don't think. However, I do believe that they are remaking it. And currently, the rumor of the director for this Arachnophobia remake is Christopher Landon, who you know from a lot of horror comedies such as Happy Death Day 2, Freaky, and the like, which means he has a good sense of tongue-in-cheek, self-aware humor, but also has a good sense of horror. I'm a little bit concerned with that. It could work, but at the same time, I don't want it to be too funny. Arachnophobia was really, really, really good in what it set out to do. But I'm going to stop talking about Arachnophobia because this review is half of a review of Arachnophobia. Just go see that one. This one's okay. This one's okay for what it is. It's made well enough. It's performed well enough, I think, in terms of predicting what'll happen next. It has a good sense of being unpredictable, and that's mostly because of how the film began before it went back in time about 4 days to see how it got there. I thought that was pretty cool. But in terms of rating, I'm going to give this a solid B+. I was kind of swapping back and forth, B+, A-. But at the end of the day, I realized that it is one of those films where it's entertaining. There's never really a dull moment, but at the same time, it's not going to be winning many awards, if any at all. Not that I think that it was trying to get awards. It's just one of those types of movies. Guys, have you seen Sting? Are you a fan of spider-based horror films? If so, let me know your favorite film of this type of movie in the comment section down below. As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. But until then, peace out.